In this session, we will look at credit enhancement using credit default swaps. Credit default swaps, popularly referred to as CDS, are among the most popular credit enhancement methods used in several financial markets, particularly in residential mortgage-backed securities. Credit default swaps are over-the-counter bilateral contracts to transfer the credit risk associated with an asset from one counterparty to another without transferring the ownership of the underlying asset. Let's look at the structure of a credit default swaps. Credit default swap is a privately negotiated contract between a protection buyer, that is the entity who wishes to shed the risk associated with an asset, and the protection seller who is willing to take on the risk that the protection buyer wishes to shed. The protection buyer therefore pays a premium or a fee to the protection seller to protect himself against losses that may be incurred in the future due to the reference entity, that is the entity who is likely to default, actually defaulting on its obligations, which is referred to as a credit event. Example of a credit event is a borrower, which is the reference entity, defaulting on his loan repayment obligations, which is the credit event. The protection seller makes good any losses as per the terms of the credit default swap whenever such a credit event is encountered. A credit event could arise for one or more of the following reasons: failure to repay by the borrower, bankruptcy declared by the borrower, restructuring of the loan, or repudiation or moratorium of the country involved in a transaction. Let's look at failure to repay first. The reference entity failing to effect the repayment of the principal and interest rate on the loan even after the application of the permissible grace period. Bankruptcy refers to a situation where the reference entity becoming insolvent or planning to file for bankruptcy. Restructuring, on the other hand, refers to a change in the terms of repayment arising from a deterioration in the credit quality of the reference entity that leaves the lenders, that is the protection buyers, materially worse off, such as reduction in interest rates, deferring of principal repayment, interest repayment, etc. Typically, when banks restructure loans is when they encounter this problem. Repudiation or moratorium applies normally only to sovereign reference entities. That means countries involved in cross-border transactions where the reference entity disaffirms, disclaims, or otherwise challenges the validity of the payment obligation. Other instruments such as credit spread, put options, credit linked notes, etc., which have a more sophisticated structure than CDS, have been detailed in the web link and the attachments at the end of this video. Hope that has given you a fair understanding of credit default swaps. Uncontrolled and unregulated use of credit default swaps to provide credit enhancements to several RMBS transactions created a serious moral hazard that was a significant contributor to the global financial meltdown of 2008.